Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fridays with Flo. And today we're going to be talking about the three biggest mistakes buyers make every week. And so we're going to get started in this pretty quickly because we've got a lot to get through. Although the three biggest points are some of the things that every buyer comes into contact at some point in the process, it can be a lot to process too. And so you're making the biggest purchase of your home, and there's a lot to the puzzle here, right? So oftentimes a home purchase is the largest asset, most expensive asset you'll ever purchase for most people, for the average person. So we'll get into it now. All right, so the number one biggest mistake that home buyers make is shopping before you're fully prepared. A lot of the times we get to scroll on Zillow at no additional cost to us, right? You could lay in bed, you could, whatever you're doing, you can access Zillow for free and view properties at your leisure. And to a certain degree, you're like, well, open houses are free, right? There's an open house down the road. I want to go look and see what it looks like in there. So you start to feel and think and process like, okay, this could really be mine. And I'm excited. I want to go for this. Like, hey, let me get a realtor to go out and show me some properties. But without getting your pre-approval, your proof of funds in place, we're not really clear on how much you can really afford. I see it often that people get really excited about purchasing a home and going after the home, right? The beautiful single story house with the 3-bed, 2-bath and a beautiful deck and a closed-in patio, fenced-in yard. You get excited about all the specific features of a house, including lighting and the nice floors and the custom closet, and we kind of don't look at how much can we actually afford. And that's really the very first step we need to make, because that exact dream home that is exciting for you could be way out of your price range. Or it could be, and you could probably get more than that if we know exactly how much you can truly afford. So getting a solid pre-approval in place is going to steer your decision. One of the things that I do as a realtor is avoid looking at homes that do not fit the budget, because I don't want you to get too excited, fall in love, think this is the one, but the numbers just don't work. We don't want you to be house poor, and surely the bank also do not want you to be house poor, because they want to be able to get their money every month, right? That mortgage payment is something that is very important to them, and they've got you fitting a certain debt to income ratio, otherwise known as DTI. So they want to ensure that your monthly obligations, any debts, any mortgage payments, all those types of things will always be fulfilled every month, and that your house is not crushing the weight of your other financial obligations. So if you're ever concerned and worried, like, okay, can I afford too much house? Or no, I can surely push this. I get buyers on both sides of it. Buyers who are like, I don't want to overextend myself. I love this house, but I don't want to pay more for it. And then buyers who are like, I think I can afford it. I can make it happen. And the bank is like, no, we're not going to approve you for that much. You can't, you know? And so because you might not have your pre-approval in place, it can cause you to lose out on winning a deal. If other people are putting in offers, it means that we're still waiting to get pre-approved. We're still waiting to know how much we can truly afford. So we can't confidently put in an offer. Even if you're like, well, let's just offer what they're asking for. They want 250, let's offer 250. Well, oftentimes the listing agent and the seller is not going to accept an offer without seeing your pre-approval letter to know that you're actually good for it. Because a lot of times people who don't have their proof of funds in place, we can go under contract, but then we come to find out credit score is not actually that good, or income was reduced, or there are a lot of different factors that can impact you fulfilling those financial requirements to close on the home successfully. So a lot of times we want to make sure we have all of the I's dotted and your T's crossed before we start the house hunt process. All right. So the second thing that we want to focus on here when we're out showing homes, looking at properties as a buyer, is not letting the emotions get the best of us. And again, I see it for both sides, whether we are thinking too much about the process and so we get to scare ourselves and allow fear to drive the decision, or we're way too excited and we're looking past all the other mistakes, right? Like we didn't look in the crawl space, so we didn't realize that there's mold in the crawl space. We didn't realize there's mold in the attic. We didn't realize that there's missing insulation. We didn't look at the HVAC and the age of it to realize that it's on its last leg, you know? So all of those factors are going to be things that you're going to inherit with the home if we don't kind of slow down, slow our roll, and look within the things that matter and not just the beautiful updated countertops and the floors and the fresh paint and the new bathroom vanity mirrors and those types of things. Those are nice too. But for me, I go through every property and I run the sinks. I look and make sure that there's no leaks. I check every light switch, and I do crawl in the crawl space as well, oftentimes in heels, and whatever it takes for me to know that with this home, here's what's going on. The vapor barrier needs to be replaced, the water heater, all sorts of things that my buyer's typically not thinking about. But I'm going to think about it because we want to know as much as we can, even prior to the home inspection. Because once we get the home inspection back, the seller is not obligated to make any repairs. They're not obligated to provide any incentives to keep you. I mean, oftentimes it's going to be in their best interest to make it work so that we can get to the finish line. However, they're not obligated to. And so it's my job to make sure that my buyer is very clear and aware of all things concerning the house, at least of what we can see with the eye, visible, without having to tear walls out, without having to go do things that I actually physically can't do. Maybe I can't fit in the attic, and so I'm not even going to try. So those are things that we can kind of figure out, and so that we're not ignoring red flags and we're loving the home and also finding out things that is very important to us about the home as well. All right. So the third and final thing is that buyers often kind of make a mistake with is focusing only on the price and not the overall deal. This is very important because sometimes if you're only looking at things at a bird's eye view, you're thinking, okay, well, they're asking for $300,000. And so if I could get it for $275, then, that's good enough. That's the deal. And I want them to pay for closing costs and I want all of this. And so that is a part of the process. However, there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle. When real estate agents are submitting offers, oftentimes we're asking for a lot from the seller. Not only are we trying to get a purchase price that's less than what they're asking for, just so that we feel like we're getting a good deal, but we're also asking for them to pay for your closing costs. So if you had an estimated $9,000 of closing costs, and so we're going to ask the seller, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, can you pay for at least $7,500 of it? It's sweet to come out and only have to pay $2,500 towards closing, right? But we're asking, not only are we trying to get a $25,000 reduction, we're also trying to get them to pay almost $10,000 of closing costs. So that's not just $25,000, that's another $7,500 less as well. And we're saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, can you also cover the full buyer agent compensation? And so because with buyers, yes, oftentimes sellers will pay the buyer agent fee. However, they're not obligated to, they're not required. It's simply custom or tradition where the sellers will cover that because an agent brought them a buyer, and so they will pay for the buyer agent commission. However, it's not required. They're not obligated to. I get a lot of buyers who say, well, the seller's going to pay your fee, right? Not automatically. It's a part of the offer, right? So the agency agreement that every buyer signs with their real estate agent is always going to say that the buyer understands they are responsible. The buyer is responsible for the agent commission. And you definitely want a real estate agent to advocate for you. You do not want to miss out on having someone who knows the field, knows the industry, protect you from hundreds of thousands of dollars of an investment. You'd never want to go that road alone because, again, we deal with the real estate market every day. We know and feel signs. I'm walking through the floors and I'm seeing if there's any unevenness. Not only that, I'm also an investor, so I deal with rehabbing homes all the time. So I can already sense work that's going to need to be done when I walk into a home. So the real estate agent's expertise that you get matters. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody to represent you, protect you, and advocate for your best interest financially and in the condition of the home that you're going to get. They're going to advocate for any items in the home inspection to be repaired or at least some credit towards that. The goal is to make you bring as very little to the closing table as possible. If I can get you to $7,500 of credit from the seller, that's about $7,500 less that you have to bring out of your bank account to close on your new home. There's so many things that you cannot do on your own, especially if you don't know how, right? And it's honestly, sometimes it's really a game of chess that real estate agents play with each other, right? So we offer a certain purchase price, a certain request for credit, and the seller will come back and they'll kind of say, we can do this, but we won't do that. And so can you do this? And we'll do this. And so then we take it and we're like, okay, well, how does that fit our needs? How does that fit into the monthly mortgage payment that we're comfortable with? How does this fit into the timeline that we need to be able to close on the loan? If we're using any specific programs like City of Raleigh, City of Durham, those down payment assistance programs require a specific timeline, right? So it's not a quick 30-day close. And also the other caveats to those is that all the items that the city comes back and say, hey, this violates code, those items will need to be repaired prior to closing. And so your real estate agent must let the other side know. And if you think you're going to go at this alone and you're going to go forward, you're like, oh, I can just do this with the lender, just me and the lender, and we're going to go after it. And the lender is doing their job as the bank. They are not representing you. They're not negotiating for you. They're not talking to the listing agent for you. They have nothing to do with it, and they actually do not care either, right? They're like, hey, can the seller do this? And then the seller's going to come back and say, hey, no, we're not going to fix all these code violations because you said you were going to buy this house as is per North Carolina real estate contracts. You're like, well, this loan is not going to close without it. And the seller's like, well, we're happy to go back on the market because we've already given you this much and you've already asked for this. And in that point in time, you as the buyer will lose any amount you've invested. All the money that you spent on home inspection, the money you spent on appraisal, the money that you gave up already in what we call due diligence fee or earnest money deposit, you don't get that money back. You know, so you could lose anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000, you know, kind of a ballpark range, depending on how much you've already had to give up front when you went under contract. Also, all the inspection fees and appraisal fees. And just because you didn't know exactly how to protect yourself. Whereas your real estate agent will understand, hey, ahead of time, here's how we're going to tackle this. Here's how we're going to have the conversation to protect you from losing out on money. So as far as all the components that's involved in the deal, so that we're not focused on pricing, it's so important for buyers to understand that every $10,000 of the loan amount only equates to somewhere between $50 and $60 a month in your mortgage payment. And so sometimes I'm telling my buyers, hey, I understand that they're asking $250 and you feel like you want to get it for like $230,000 or so. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to drastically reduce your mortgage payment. You're only saving yourself about $100 a month for asking for a $20,000 reduction. Is that worth it to you? Are you willing to lose the home, not for $20,000 of a difference in the purchase price, but rather for $100 a month of a difference in this, you know? And there's other things. It's like, well, would you prefer to get $7,000 or $5,000 towards your closing costs, which the lender can then use further towards your down payment or reduce less money out of your pocket, versus being so focused on how much you're actually buying the house for? Right? So these are the things that it's important to kind of consider. It's not just about the purchase price, it's the full deal itself. If you're able to get the seller what they want, which is what they're asking for the house, but at least to cover your closing costs and to cover your agent's commission so that you're not having to come out of pocket for any differences or any amount, you're still winning. You are still winning the deal, you know, and it's a win-win for both sides. The seller gets what they want, which is their asking price. You get what you want, which is money towards your closing costs and paying your agent so you didn't have to pay your real estate agent. So just a lot of pieces to the puzzle here. And so although we've only covered 3 items here for today's conversation of mistakes, 3 biggest mistakes buyers make every week, these are some really in-depth topics that have a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And so I want you to challenge yourself. If you've thought about these things, I'm curious which ones have hit home for you or resonated for you. Comment in our comment box here, and also like and share this with a friend. I do want to do one quick add-on. Overanalyzing can cause you to miss opportunities. Of course, real estate is a huge expense, and so it can really cause for pause, at times, because you're like, am I making the right move? Is this worth it for me? And you have several advocates protecting you and preparing you. The mortgage lender has their range of how much they know you can actually afford, and your realtor, if you have a good realtor, I know that not all realtors are made the same, and same even with mortgage lenders. But either way, if you have people who are in your corner advocating for you, you simply should trust the process. I watch so many people stay comfortable with renting because they cannot get over their fear of home ownership. What if something goes wrong? What if something breaks? I'm not going to be able to call somebody anymore. What if this is going to be tens of thousands of dollars of a difference of an expense for me? There are so many measures you can put in place to protect yourself. There are a lot of things homeowners insurance covers. There are things that you could get a home warranty for to also protect and get replaced so that you're not coming out of pocket for it. Most importantly, that's why a rainy day fund is very important. But there's no bigger power than real estate investing. Owning real estate. It is the number 1 wealth building tool, and you don't want to miss out on an opportunity to build wealth through just one home, just one real estate. And so many stories where people have purchased their first home, lived in it for a period of time, and have managed to sell it for $50,000 and over what they originally paid for it. So not only do they get back the money that they've kind of paid towards the mortgage, even if the mortgage is not paid in full, they owe less. They owe less on the home by the time they sold it, so they get back the money they've spent on the home, all the expenses, and most importantly, value has appreciated. Whereas with renting, you don't get any of that back. So some things, that's really the real pause for cause when it comes to mistakes buyers make, because overanalyzing can really cost you years of financial opportunities. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next Friday for our next episode of Fridays with Flo. See y'all.